mobilization.
That's right.
Now comes the organization.
The organization
is what has to take place, community by community, block by block, district by district. Of course, east, west, north, south, all of that has to take place, and that's what we have to see now. If that will in fact take place, were there any young people allowed to speak? Young people that I'd say that many are talking about that we're standing for. There were young people certainly there in the march, but were there young people under the age of 18 that were allowed to come on the stage and perhaps speak and address the men that were there?
The youngest person to speak was the organizer.
Okay, Brother Munir Baha.
Yes,
okay,
yes.
so that was the youngest one.
Right.
Okay, all right. Now, the march was supposed to start at 7. Did they start at 7, or was it actually a rally that actually began at 7 to about 8 o'clock?
Right. The rally began at 7, and then the march, we began walking at 8, a little after 8.
Right. Okay. Now, you mentioned that the mayor was the only woman that spoke. Now I'm trying to really kind of, contain myself here. You know what I mean? Because with all of the women that have lost sons, lost daughters, lost husbands, they've lost loved ones to the violence in the city of Baltimore, but none of them were given an opportunity to come up and speak last night and address the issue of violence and the personal part of how it has affected them. But only this one black woman, the mayor of the city of Baltimore, spoke to the brothers that were there last night. Yes?
She seemed to speak on behalf, of the women who were there. She came and said, I speak from a woman's perspective.
Sure.
And then, proceeded to talk about the feelings that women share in terms of their relationships with their men or with their husbands, or et cetera, and kind of addressing the need for men to take a responsibility.
Yes, sir.
Because apparently they're not at home or something, and so there are complications in that. But she spoke on behalf of the women. But what I was able to sense, or what I was able to notice, was there were many women who had a lot to say, as we were marching down the street.
Sisters always going to have a thing to say. Now we're going to get into that in a minute in terms
Yeah.
of the march. Where you proceeded, of course, from one end of North Avenue.
Okay.
And I was kind of, as I said, taken back that this is what I know Reverend Willie Ray would always talk about, hands across Baltimore. Also, this looked like some remnants of the Believe campaign, because that was something that Martin O'Malley taught them in terms of how to do as well, particularly with the use of the stage, but no artists or entertainers as they used to do with the Believe campaign, which many said, of course, was a Deceive campaign.
Okay.
And then, of course, we grew up in a time when there was Operation Champ and other activities that would come to the communities for those that maybe had the Afro Claim Block and those who were demonstrating strong communities uptown regarding dealing with issues in our communities, and to be recognized by those downtown, but also in a partnership in a sense, but understanding that they had services to provide to our community.
Yes.
So the march, of course, proceeded from North and Hilton, and then you had members from the union. I understand Glenn Middleton was there.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And there were some others that were there, right? Because, I'm looking at this almost like as if it wasn't an amalgamation of Believe 2. Operation Safe Street was there, and it seems as if they're the ones that's getting most of the mic and the ink from the news media. It's almost as if they're being told, if you want to talk to anyone in the community, from those on the council, it seems to be Nick Mosby and Brandon Scott. Don't talk to Carl Stokes, God knows, because, in terms of what he may say. And now it seems as if, even with this march, that it seems as if the cues are being given to the news media that perhaps only, again, those in terms of that grassroots organization, Operation Safe Street, should be the ones that should be speaking to the news media. And thoughts and comments, I think, on that. And then we'll talk about the march, how it proceeded down North Avenue in the response of the ordinary man and woman down there in the streets to see the brothers, because I know there was the camaraderie of seeing brothers come together, of course, reminding them and reflecting back on the Million Man March in terms of that synergy of energy. But then we have to look at what comes next. But how was the response, I guess, in terms of your observation to the citizens that were watching as this was proceeding? And I can't say that without saying, of course, this was obviously clearly a City Hall sponsored event, because the mayor was there and there was heavy police presence in terms of the police leading the march, in terms of the escort. There was the police in the front and there was police in the rear as well. So I want that to be clear for the record. So, but your thoughts and comments on how it was being perceived by the ordinary man and woman as they were proceeding down North Avenue.
The ordinary man and woman, for sure, was encouraged. And, I speak of my cousin who came with me, and, at first he was a little, reluctant to go. He says, well, I'm not sure, if it's going to work out. I said, well, all right, well, just come with me. Come with me, and let's walk together. And so there was that sense of togetherness, because once we felt that we were a part of something, all of the conversations that we had about any type of wrongdoing, disparity in the city, the amount of violence, and all of these negative issues did kind of come out in a positive light. And at that point is when I began to observe that the movement was very much controlled in a way. If you have your city officials speak first, and then after they have speaking first, and the the news clips are taken for the for the 11 o'clock news, and after all of that's said and done, then they say, okay, well, now you can proceed into the march, and the core group. I think COR,
yes, which is Brother Munir Baha's group and organization.
That's
then
right.
Operation Safe Street, I'm sure they were there as well, and other organizations. Please continue.
Certainly much work and time goes into the development and getting everyone out. And, the organization. Like we said, the organization of this, the mobilization. You say
the mobilization, and now comes the organization, because you don't have to really organize to get our people out because of so much hurt, so much pain, so much crime, so much grime, so much violence in terms of homicides and murders, in terms of the fratricides and the genocide that we see that's going on. So not much has to go into that. Just give the word, use social network media, and of course, because this did have the blessings of City Hall, that we know that the news media, the corporate-controlled news media, was given the okay to go and promote this. You know what I mean? Out to the general public in terms of, again, the 300-man march, even creating hashtags on social media, and then going beyond that. But so now the march, now I got to ask, was there any literature given out, any information given out in terms of for services? If you're someone that's lost a loved one in the city, where do you go? Because as I talked about, and then Brother Carlton Douglas went on to talk about, in the state's attorney's office, they have money and funds set aside. If you don't have the funds, they have a victim service assistance funds that you can tap into for burial and funeral services for your loved ones, because funerals are expensive, and the funeral director has been making a killing, no pun intended, in the city of Baltimore. Were there any material given out about that? Any material given out about jobs? Any material given out about employment in the communities? Any material given out regarding, if you have lost a loved one, how you could have access to the Roberta House, which they will come to you and do counseling. You can go to them to get counseling. Any materials given out, such as just that literature in terms of where do we go from here, the next stage, the next phase of the stage, in terms of, again, if we're going to be in one particular community, going door to door, galvanizing people information. I saw sisters getting people signing up as I saw them coming in. But there was any literature given out other than bottled water yesterday?
No, I didn't receive any literature. Like you just said, there was a registration form, that was handed out, and we, put all of our information, and email address, etc. And then on the back was a liability in terms of if someone was to get sick or anything during the march. Then
liability.
There was a sign, like a waiver,
like a waiver, consent form.
Right.
Yes, sir.
So given your consent, I'm sure it was hot yesterday, and all of that, and so there would be paramedics available, but we didn't get any information, any pamphlets on these issues or anything in hand to take, or I didn't see anything, and I did walk from beginning to end.
Yes, sir.
Other than the bottled water, and perhaps once I have submitted my registration form, perhaps we might get something soon coming, in the mail, but not yesterday.
Okay. Yes, sir. Again, family, just tuning in, having a conversation with Brother Jimothy Rogers of the American African Committee. We're discussing and talking about, again, the day after the 300-man march. And the question I'd have to probably ask is, Will, in terms of seeing the mobilization, but now the organization to go door to door, block by block, community by community, district by district, but also tying people to services, as I said, that after a violent crime, and if there's a hotline established, if there's some beefs going on in certain neighborhoods and communities, those that can be able to call a number anonymously to come in, so that we have a team of brothers come in and help quell those differences or squash those differences with brothers before they escalate. And even in our senior citizen buildings, which I'm going to talk about shortly, where Delegate Carter and those in the 41st District had a meeting at the Bell Park Towers. But our senior centers are becoming very hotbeds for violence because of the 504s residents who are addicted to drugs, and then the element that they bring into our senior buildings. And then just a few years ago in the Simmons Memorial Building, 300 block of McMecken Street, where an 80-year-old, I believe, shot and killed a 66-year-old. So there are elements that's going on, and even in our senior buildings, where you have to be able to, have services to be able to, I think, again, stop the violence, reduce the violence, and nullify the violence in terms of the peacekeepers in the community. So asking again, did the citizens, as they were wrapping up, once you reached Milton, right? And not everybody that started the march clearly ended the march, right? The Glenn Middletons and others kind of peeled off after they got what they wanted to get out of the march, right?
A few blocks later, they had right at kind of Pulaski Street, a few
Yes, sir.
of those that were there.
Did the mayor march 10 miles?
No, she had kind of gotten the vehicle. And
She got in the vehicle okay, she peeled off after that. She just left. Did Nick Mosby march the whole 10 miles?
I didn't see him during the march.
Okay. Did Brandon Scott march the whole 10 miles? I just got to ask.
Yeah, I know. And so I don't recall seeing them, but they may have.
Did Batch march the whole 10 miles or police escort?
I did shake Commissioner Bat's hand right at Coppin State. He was shaking hands with people as we passed by.
Yes, sir. Okay. All right. And I guess the question I'd have to ask now is the issue dealing with the next march. Is there going to be a 300 doctor march, 300 psychologist march, 300 dentist march? And I say that because we're dealing with some serious health conditions in our communities that's not being addressed. And even some of those brothers that they putting on television, no pun intended, no disrespect, with Operation Safe Street and some of these other organizations that come from a community dealing with the issues of substance abuse. They got one tooth in their mouth, two teeth in their mouth, and if we can get some dental service and some health services in our communities, then that's something that's dealing with the issues of violence as well in our communities in terms of the self-respect. Or as I heard some people say, we are sick people. Yeah, we're not just sick mentally. We're sick spiritually. We're sick health-wise. So some of them brothers that wanted to march 10 miles couldn't march 10 miles because of their health condition. And that's a serious condition when we look at research and studies that talks about the health of Baltimore City. You know what I mean? In terms of the young people as well as the young adults as well, that continues to be neglected. But hearing a message that I played with Kwame Toure talking about how in Cuba they had free health care. How for one child had a doctor tied to the child so that the child could have and obtain optimum health. And that's an issue in Baltimore City. We saw that even under Colonel Muammar Gaddafi in Libya in terms of health care. So that's a serious issue when we're in a city with all of these world-class, world-renowned hospitals from Johns Hopkins to University of Maryland to Bon Secours. They're coming in and buying up properties in our community, but at the same time, we don't see them providing the services that the citizens in this city need, more so than probably any other city in the country right now. So the question is I have to ask to those organizers and the mayor, when are we going to see a 300 doctors march, a 300 psychologist march, a 300 cardiologist march? Because heart disease is still the #1 killer in the black community. When are we going to see a 300 social workers march, 300 employees perhaps from the health department, because they're the ones that's funding this Operation Safe Street through grants from the Department of Justice and other federal departments, if we can just have some transparency. Of course, all that comes out of the Bible to ask the question, is there a bomb in Gilead, right?
That's right.
Not a B-O-M-B, but a B-A-L-M, right?
That's right.
Why then does the people or the daughters or the children of my daughters suffer because there's no bomb in Gilead? So the question is there a bomb in Baltimore?
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
To be able to provide the services that our people need. And again, tying it also to jobs, and I mean real jobs with health insurance, livable wages, and an opportunity. And I'm sure that one way that we can kind of test this unity and test whether your mayor and your elected officials are sincere is that hearing that's coming up this Wednesday on the 10th at 5 o'clock in City Hall around Harbor Point. And will we take 3 million men or 300 men to that hearing to say to, again, Michael Beatty, to say to the white businessmen in the city that we have to have a redistribution of the wealth, a redistribution of the services and the opportunities in the city. And here's the mayor's opportunity to prove it, because where brothers can get jobs, then they're not idle. Where young men can get jobs and opportunities, such as helping to build up East Baltimore, then here's an opportunity now for Brandon Scott to put his money where he say his heart is, for Nick Mosby to put his money where he say his heart is, but they didn't do it when they were closing recreation centers.